Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The scars from the ongoing war in Ambazonia keep growing daily. The negative consequences of the war are on a surge despite the outing of the colonial president of La République du Cameroon. After declaring the situation to be under control, Ambazonia is still at war and the situation has not changed. More news of deaths due to the war increasing as is obvious in actions seen than words said. The La Republic is not ready to do anything in fostering an end to the war. It instead is more concerned with lying to the international community and the world at large that all is in control and weaponizing its military to continue causing mayhem in the British Southern Cameroons, with the hope that the annihilation agenda would bring an end to the war. Well, it is sad that so far that hasn't worked, but La Republique would not see a more appropriate and legal approach to deal with the situation on ground. Oh well, like every other day in the British Southern Cameroons, a lot has taken place, which we'll get across to you amongst other news from around Africa and the world, just after the prime headlines.
Here are the prime headlines for tonight. For the year 2023, close to 6,000 civilians killed. In Ambazonia, not just that, at least 2,245 schools not functioning. Now, this is a report that will definitely interest you tonight. Mankon celebrates the return of electricity after more than 4 months of blackout. Uncertainty of lives in Ambazonia. This is a sad report as unidentified corpses found in an advanced stage of decomposition in Ambazonia. While on the African scene, Israel withdraws some of the troops from Gaza, sparks new government rift. Well, that's actually on the foreign scene, while on the African scene in Morocco, emergency plan to counter the water crisis on the increase. While in sports, Formula One, James Allison signs long-term contract extension to remain as technical director for the Mercedes. Now let's get the news in full briefings. The Human Rights Watch report from 1st of January has come to debunk the lie of the octogenarian, the La République du Cameroon president Paul Biya of things being under control in Ambazonia. This report is to clear the air and states the fact that the colonial government of La République du Cameroon has completely missed out on Ambazonia. Things are in no way under control as claimed by President Paul Biya. The number of La République du Cameroon not functioning schools in Ambazonia says it all. The Human Rights Watch report puts the number of La République du Cameroon run schools in Ambazonia that are non-functional at more than 2,245. If things were normal, why then are these schools not functioning? Well, while you're still trying to answer that question, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Ongi. Good evening, Ambazonians. Well, Cameroon's English-speaking region, the British Southern Cameroon, has witnessed a surge in violence during the later half of 2023 last year, with civilians bearing the brunt. According to Human Rights Watch, the New York-based organization's annual review sheds light on the escalating conflict marked by cases of unlawful killings, abductions, and raids on villages. According to the Human Rights Watch report, clashes between belligerents saw an increase in cases of unlawful killings, abductions, and raids on villages in the last 6 months of the year. Now, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, primarily English speaking, has been embroiled in conflict since 2017 following a declaration of independence. The roots of the conflict lie in decades of perceived discrimination against the Anglophone region, the Anglophone population, by the French speaking community in the Cameroons.
President Paul Biya, who has held power for 41 years, has consistently resisted calls for broader autonomy, responding with a crackdown on restoration movements. In 2023, the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, also known as the Ambazonian State Army, had a win in the activities and institutions around Ambazonia. At least 2,245 schools are not functioning in the Ambazonian region. Now, this is as reported by the HRW reports. That's the Human Rights Watch reports. By mid 2023, over 638,000 people had been displaced, and 1.7 million required humanitarian aid in Ambazonia, despite colonial President's false claim in January that Ambazonia Restoration Forces had surrendered and the threat they posed had significantly diminished. While Human Rights Watch noted that they saw continued violence for a sixth year and even counting.
Well, according to Human Rights Watch, abusive army raids and killings of civilians may also have been perpetrated against individuals in retaliation for attacks against army positions. Now, since the violence erupted in 2016, the report highlighted that at least 6,000 civilians have lost their lives due to the actions of both colonial government forces and other armed forces. Well, this being a very highly underestimated figure. The report puts into question the so-called professionalism of the La République du Cameroun colonial forces.
All right, moving on. Moving on, let's check some of the uncertainties that has affected the lives of Ambazonians. The scars from the ongoing war in Ambazonia keep growing on a regular basis. The negative consequences of the war are on the surge despite the outing of the colonial president of La République du Cameroun, President Paul Biya, declaring that the situation was under control. He said his terrorist forces are in control. Well, you can say it's a paradox. This is funny to say, or even with the reality on the ground. La République du Cameroon institutions like the Calm Water and NEO can't even operate as before the war. There are quarters in Ambazonia that La République du Cameroon water and electricity providers cannot access, since they have not lived up to the rules put in place by the Ambazonian State Army.
Oh well, Ambazonia is at war and the situation has not changed. The corpse of a girl suspected to be in her 20s has been discovered at New Road, Maltoon, Queen, a neighborhood in Bamenda, the chief town of Midland zone of Ambazonia. The question on the ground certainly would be who killed her and why. Well, this has happened in less than a month, and Paul Biya said everything is under control. How ironic. The inhabitants of New Road 1 and Queen in Bamenda are still in shock after the discovery of a corpse in the neighborhood. On Wednesday, yesterday, January 17th, 2024, the corpse of a young lady in her 20s was identified in a near close by farm in the New Road neighborhood.
Those around where the said corpse at a stage of decomposition was discovered opined that it is the aftermath of the Sunday, January 14th shooting. Talking with those of the Nquain neighborhood on that gathered on Sunday night, breaking was very disturbing with definite gunshots. Another said Ambazonian State Army were attacked by the My 4 colonial police post. The actual cause for the death of the uncovered corpse is still very much unknown.
Oh, well, students, business owners, and inhabitants of Alamatu Mankon in Nizam County have been in difficulties in their attempt to cope without electricity for more than 4 months. While the lone transformer supply in the neighborhood got burnt as a result of overloading, with the growth of population, with the direct consequence being the increasing number of people in need of electricity. The colonial Enio kept increasing the number of subscribers. Enio, just like the colonial administrators of the Bia's regime, careless of the consequence of increasing subscribers to a single transformer so long as the money was entering their coffers. While the colonial administration had no remorse for Ambazonian students in this area, and shamelessly, this regime in the month ahead, organize end-of-circle examinations for these deprived students to compete with those in other areas who have been studying under better conditions. Wonder are the coffers of the colonial government so dry that they cannot replace the transformer until after 4 months.
The electricity sector is another failed promise of President Paul Biya. For months and counting, the people of the Alamacho in Mankon, Mason County are no longer looking and waiting to see the return of electricity. As reported last week on Undaunted, in their frustration, students, business owners, and inhabitants in this neighborhood have pronounced the curse on the colonial regime of Paul Biya for deciding to make life miserable for them. On the 31st of December 2022, President Paul Biya announced that in 2023, the epileptic nature of the country will be no more as the electricity generation plants of Lumpanga and Memveli are geared towards completion. These were all lies that the Lumpanga hydroelectric plant and the Memveli dam are at completion because on the 31st of December 2023, he repeated the same promise. These two are artificial dams that the colonial regime preferred to lavish huge sums of taxpayers' money on, rather than spending less to harness the momentum fall that, when generated, can supply the whole of West Africa.
Oh, well, speculation has it that the refusal of the La République du Cameroon colonial government to develop the Menchum Fall is simply because it is in Ambazonian soil of Menchum County. And if it were in La République du Cameroon, it would have been a priority project rather than creating artificial dams. Now, La République du Cameroon attempt to shift all developmental projects from Ambazonia to La République du Cameroon is really a pound foolish effect.
While inhabitants of Alamatu are spending more to fuel generators and acquire solar system gadgets to lit their homes at night and even charge their gadgets. To remedy the situation and not depend on the colonial administration, the Amazonian people of Alamatu in Mankon contributed and acquired for themselves a new transformer that was installed yesterday. Kudos to them.
Oh, well, on to this very next report, we take a look at Jean Baptiste Bokam, who has been tagged one of the most dangerous La République hangmen that inflamed the killings of Ambazonians. He was a major actor of the Genocida Biya regime and one of the authors that inflamed the Anglophone conflict. He was among those who advocated for Biya to declare war in the southern Cameroons and radicalized the youth to morph from peace plan to rubber guns and Dane guns to what we have today in defense of homeland. Well, remember on September 2017 when some arrested Anglophones were released and things weren't getting closely to calm, heavily armed colonial La Republic to Cameroon soldiers set Sacred Heart College Mankon, a section of the male dormitory on fire, and Queen of the Rosary College, Okoyong, was torched by them. It was traumatizing for the students, the parents, and also the teachers. Jean-Baptiste Bokam, the war merchant, used the occasion and told Ali Dia that the situation was tense and he needed military and financial logistics to secure school resumption.
Well, report has it that a 340 million francs CFA, a package was granted to Bokam to send gendarmes to the Ambazonia region. The gendarmes came, but the money didn't, and shortly after, videos started circulating online how they lacked food and water. Bokam now gave them the power to extort from peace-loving southern Cameroonians and Ambazonians through massive arbitrary arrests, illegal control posts, and many other schemes. Shortly later, the occupier, La République de Cameroon police and their army followed suit by committing all kinds of atrocities with human and material damage. 3 months later, President Paul Biya declared total war and heavy military equipment. Thousands of troops and other thugs invaded the Ambazonian region.
Well, the same ruling class who are feeding fat from the war are the ones who acclaim terrorism even more than the presumed terrorist. These very warmongers feeding fat from BA's miscalculations in Ambazonia don't want any dialogue to stop the war and stop them from getting the billions that they have been enjoying from the state coffers. Well, for those who do not know, most of the atrocious acts committed by these people to ensure the continuity of the war and fake Amber leadership like Capodania, who are equally feeling fat from the war and desperate to seek full notice and gain some fake legitimacy, foolishly claim responsibility. Well, that is why things die down for a while and suddenly spring up, so the war continues. A pregnant woman was killed in Manfay just which day to infuriate the Amazonian warriors for retaliation, and the war continues by such continuous radicalization of the Anglophones.
Well, today, the state coffers of the colonial La République de Cameroon are empty. Depleted by the ongoing war, debts have increased, taxes have risen, prices have tripled, inflation is at its peak, and the state finds it hard to pay salaries of civil servants. Bokam was appointed Colonial Minister of Public Works, where he purified all the money that was earmarked for road construction in the country. The same thing Ngannou in Jumacy is doing today, and be as usual as the principle allows them to get away with it. Roads like the Ayos, Boni, Akumchu, and others worth billions were never tarred, though all expenses had been paid for by the La Republic of Cameroon state, even the road of his own village. Jean-Baptiste Bokam blocked Yaoundé roads and, through lavish parties there, imported wines were used to wash hands during the party as he successfully celebrated billions he had stolen from the states.
Well, he, like Tanyi Mbianyo Clarkson of forestry, Roger Melinge of the budget, Akame Mfumo of finance, Ngafesin Emmanuel, Philippe Ngole Ngwese, and others, also threw lavish parties to celebrate the successful siphoning of billions from their corrupt state coffers at the heart of the crisis. In a country where people lack potable water, electricity, roads, etc., even in major shanty cities. Jean-Baptiste Bokam alone bought 17% of shares in Bisec Bank, worth 250 billion capital, and he became the board chairman of the said bank. When Bia appoints you and you steal, he gives you a higher position so that you can continue to steal more, since the CPDM style governance is allergic to accountability and transparency. But that is how Bokam has been appointed head of the National Gendarmerie SEAD.
Well, in summary, this report states that it was Bokam that arrested, detained, whisked off Ambazonians from all over and ferried them to Yaoundé, where some were tortured to death, some were locked up on the ground, some got missing and are unaccounted for even till date, while others are still in detention. For the young generation who do not know, Jean-Baptiste Bokam studied in Lise Moyoko in Man-O Bay Boyer, the only bilingual grammar school at the time in the West Cameroons. Today, he has passed out without solving the problems he left behind and without paying for the deeds. Well, as you all know, only God can judge. Well, this is from Tambay, edited for Undaunted. Coming up next is African Report.
Well, on the African scene, Morocco, an emergency plan to counter the water crisis. The emergency plan put forth by the Moroccan government aims to tackle the water crisis in the country. Rising temperatures caused by climate change have pushed Morocco into a state of water stress. According to the World Resource Institute, WRI, Morocco is projected to experience extremely high levels of water stress by 2040. Nisa Baraka, the Minister of Equipment and Water, revealed that between September and mid-January 2024, the country faced a rainfall deficit of 70% compared to the average.
While the United Nations World Food Programme is collaborating with the Zimbabwean government and humanitarian organizations to provide food assistance to 2.7 million villagers in the country, the El Nino weather phenomenon is contributing to a drought crisis in South Africa due to poor harvest in drought affected areas. Where small scale agriculture is rallied upon for food, almost 20% of Zimbabwe's population is at risk of famine.
Well, Francesca Elderman, the WFP World Food Program Country Director for Zimbabwe, explained that El Nino is expected to exacerbate the situation by causing below average rainfall again this year. El Nino, a recurring weather pattern that warms parts of the Pacific, has various impacts worldwide, and is in this case, it has a significant effect when rain falls or arrives late. Elderman shared this information at a news conference.
Well, still on news across Africa, UK lower house passes bill to send some migrants to Rwanda. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak successfully navigated a rebellion within the Conservative Party and managed to pass his plan to relocate certain asylum seekers to Rwanda through the House of Commons on Wednesday, January 17th. With a vote of 320 to 276, lawmakers supported a bill amid at overcoming a block on the Rwandan plan imposed by the UK Supreme Court. This vote followed a previous day rebellion by around 60 members of Sunak's governing Conservatives who sought to make the legislation more stringent.
Well, not forgetting that still on migrant situation, a new film by director Stéphane Marchetti offers fresh insight into the plight of migrants who attempt perilous journeys into Europe. And for the final report on the African scene, the Peace and Security Council (PSC) of the African Union, at its 1,192nd meeting held on 17 January 2024, considered the situation between the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Federal Republic of Somalia. The Council also welcomed the convening of the extra audit of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development (IGAD) in Kampala, Republic of Uganda, scheduled for 18 January 2024, and looks forward to its outcome, agreeing to remain actively seized of the matter. Well, with that, we'll go on into the news across the globe.
News across the globe. Let's start with the Israeli government. A far-right Israeli government minister has criticized a decision by the country's military to withdraw an army division from Gaza, exposing further divides between lawmakers over the military's offensive in the Palestinian enclave. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said a rocket barrage launched from Gaza into Israel on Tuesday morning provides once again that the occupation of the Gaza Strip is necessary for the realization of the combat goals. The IDF said on Monday that the 36th Division, which comprises of armored engineering and infantry companies, withdrew from the Gaza Strip after 80 days, and the most significant sign yet of a shift toward a new phase of fighting that some Israeli officials have been promising.
While US voters react to Trump's commanding Iowa win. As expected, former President Donald Trump was the clear winner of the lower caucuses with a landslide victory on Monday night. The result is the first step towards setting up a rematch with President Joe Biden in November. The former president dominated in the state where the Republican electorate is deeply conservative, taking over 50% of the vote and tightening his hold over the party. In the hours after his overwhelming victory, the BBC spoke to voters across the political spectrum and asked them what they made for Mr. Trump's electoral return. While some Republicans, seemingly the majority of the party based off the lower result, think that Mr. Trump is the only one who can save the nation, others fear the billionaire will lose once again to Biden in the presidential election.
Well, Britain is deploying 20,000 troops across Europe to deter Russia. Defense Secretary Grant Shapps has announced that in the first half of 2024, 20,000 service personnel from the Royal Navy, the British Army, and the Royal Air Force will deploy across Europe to take part in the exercise Steadfast Defender 24. The exercise will see the UK's armed forces join thousands of personnel from 31 NATO allies and Sweden operating across multiple countries, coinciding with the NATO alliance's 75th year. The following is an excerpt of the speech given by Shapps. It goes on to say, and I read, if Putin thought we would be distracted by the events in the Middle East, then last week, because of the long term decision his government has taken, his hopes were surely dashed. In a complex world, no nation can afford to go it alone. So we must continue strengthening our alliances so that the world knows they cannot be broken. Defense is in many ways the cornerstone of our relations across the world.
Speaking of defense, in the Russian-Ukraine war, the production of Russian missiles, other weapons, and the work of the Russian defense industry are based on shady ties with the world's leading countries. That is according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He said this at a joint press conference with Swiss President Viola Amherd in Bern on Monday, January 15th, Ukreform reports. Ukraine counts on Switzerland's support in the global work to block all schemes to circumvent sanctions. Currently, we see that Russian missiles that terrorize the cities, according to him, are the weapons that they use, and the work of their military industry are based on shady ties, according to Zelensky, with the world's leading countries. Each Russian missile has dozens of components created by companies from other countries, including Europe.
Well, let's see what Trump has been up to lately. The Supreme Court's recent decision to take a case challenging how the Justice Department prosecutes January 6 rioters has already put on hold several rioters' sentencing and could affect hundreds more cases, including Donald Trump's. Now, if the challenge is successful, the Supreme Court could potentially wipe away two of the four counts the special counsel Jack Smith against the former president in his federal election interference case and upheld felony convictions for dozens of January 6 rioters. Since the Supreme Court agreed last month to take the case, Feature versus the US, more than a dozen January 6 defendants have already asked judges to halt their upcoming sentences and trials. Well, while some judges have backed, others have agreed to put it on hold for the rioters in a handful of cases. Well, that's all for the news across the globe. Let's meet Gab Ellison in the sports studio.
Latest world sports. Tennis. Australian Open 2024 results. Alexander Zverev survives scare against qualifier Lucas Klein. Casper Ruud wins. Six-seed Alexander Zverev narrowly avoided an Australian Open upset as he needed 5 sets to beat qualifier Lucas Klein and reach the third round. The Olympic champion 26 took 4 hours and 30 minutes to beat Klein 25 7536467675. It was only the world number 163 second match in the Grand Slam main draw, but the German said Slovakia's Glenn probably deserved to win more. Second seed Carlos Alcaraz won in 4 sets against Italy's Lorenzo Sonigo. The Spaniard won a fourth-set tiebreak to avoid a fifth set and wrap up a 6-4, 6-7, 3-7, 6-3, 7-6, 7-3 victory on Rod Laver Arena. 11th seed Casper Ruud was not so lucky as he endured a five-setter against Max Purcell. Norway's Ruud battled through 6-3, 6-7, 5-7, 6-3, 3-6, 7-6, 10-7 in 3 hours and 50 minutes to disappoint vocal home support for the Australian. Both Zverev and Ruud won 10 tiebreaks in the deciding set, with the German avoiding a second successive second-round exit in Melbourne. "I would have much rather won in an hour and a half, but what can I do?" he said. He played incredible, was hitting every ball as hard as he could from both sides. "I didn't really know what to do a lot of the time. To be honest, he probably deserved to win more than me. That's how tennis goes sometimes. I'm happy that I'm through, but his ranking is no value to how he's playing." Zverev will play American world number 91 Alex Michelsen in the next round. Ruud will play British number 1 Cameron Norrie, who came through his own five-setter on Thursday against Giuseppe Pieri. "It was an incredible match and it could have gone both ways," Ruud said. "Max has taken his tennis to a new level and I wish him the best of success in the year to come. He plays fast and is one of the most unorthodox players these days. It's tough. He made it hard and luckily, in the end, it went in my favor." Alcaraz was tested by blustery conditions and a tricky opponent in Sonego, but he was able to keep the world number 46 at bay in a fourth-set tiebreak to seal victory in 3 hours and 25 minutes. It is just the second time Alcaraz, a two-time major winner, has reached the third round in Melbourne, having missed last year's tournament through injury. "I'm really happy with my performance today," said the Spaniard, who will next face Chinese wildcard Shang Juncheng. "I think both of us played at a really high level with high intensity. The match was a little bit tricky with the wind and the sun. It was tough to play your best, but we tried to stay there all the time, even if I lost the second set." Basketball. Dejan Milojevic. Golden State Warriors assistant coach Dejan Milojevic has died at the age of 46 after suffering a heart attack. Serbian Milojevic fell ill at a private team dinner on Tuesday and was taken to hospital in Salt Lake City, Utah. The Warriors said external that despite life-saving efforts, Milojevic passed away late on Wednesday morning. Head coach Steve Kerr said his assistant, who was born in Belgrade, brought joy and light to every single day with his passion. Describing the news as a shocking and tragic blow, Kerr said Milojevic was one of the most positive and beautiful human beings he had ever known. He added, "We grieve with and for his wife Natasha and their children Nikola and Masa. Their loss is unfathomable." Writing on X, formerly Twitter, the Warriors added that they are absolutely devastated by Milojevic's sudden passing. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said Milojevic was a beloved colleague and dear friend to so many in the global basketball community. The former professional player joined Golden State in 2021 and was part of the coaching staff that led the Warriors to the NBA title in 2022. Milojevic was part of the Xavier team for 14 years and became assistant coach of the national side in December 2019. He also had a spell as head coach of KK Budućnost in the Adriatic League in Montenegro before his move to the United States with the Warriors 3 years ago. The Warriors were scheduled to play at Utah Jazz on Wednesday, but the NBA postponed the game when the news of Milojevic's medical emergency was released. 9 games did take place across the NBA on Wednesday, with tributes and silences held for Milojevic. The Warriors are scheduled to face the Dallas Mavericks at 300 GMT on Saturday. Formula One. Mercedes. James Allison signs long-term contract extension to remain as technical director. Mercedes technical director James Allison has signed a long-term contract extension and believes the team will be a challenger in 2024. Allison, 55, joined Mercedes in 2017 as technical director and helped them to 5 consecutive Constructors' Championship. Earlier this week, Toto Wolff signed a 3-year deal to remain Mercedes team principal. "We are absolutely a challenger rather than a favorite," said Allison. "Nevertheless, we hope we have done a good job with the new car," he added. Allison said he has a desire to keep going in Formula One and continuing in his role was instinctive. Mercedes failed to win a Grand Prix in 2023, their first winless season since 2011. When asked about Mercedes' challenge to return to the top, Allison said it's far from unenjoyable being in that position as long as the team is collectively confident that it's making the right moves to try to re-establish itself as a force to be reckoned with. I hope that journey upwards is steep and strong and secure, but it will be fun trying to drive it at whatever pace we can to give our rivals a good old fight. I think Toto drew the comparison between climbing Mount Everest and the challenge we have in front of us, and I think that's a fairly apt comparison. Everest is the sternest of challenges, but it is nevertheless something that is possible to do. Allison believes the announcement of his and Wolf's contract extensions offered stability and commitment to the team. Looking ahead, Allison said that the grid is gradually compressing due to shorter gaps between drivers, and he added this trend will likely continue in the new season. It's impossible at this time of year to be anything other than apprehensive, coupled with excited and frightened. Those are always the emotions you feel, Allison said. Wolf praised Allison's commitment to Mercedes and said he had been a key ally and sparring partner for him personally. Put simply, he is the most impressive technical leader in our sport, said Wolf. His gladiator spirit, along with his knowledge, experience, and determination, make him second to none. Mercedes won both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships in 2020, but they have failed to reach the same level of success since the new technical rules were introduced 2 years ago in an attempt to make the field closer. Allison swapped roles with Mike Elliott in 2021 when Mercedes embarked on a transition period, with Elliott taking over as technical director. They then swapped roles again in April 2023. The unique car design philosophy for 2022 was significantly different from that of our other leading teams, and Mercedes found themselves struggling for competitiveness throughout the campaign. Mercedes have secured only one victory in 45 races since seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton won the 2021 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. They finished second in the constructors' standings last season, but were 451 points behind champions Red Bull, who have dominated in recent years. Gab Ellison reporting from Daunted, ABC Amber News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that sports report. And with that report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at the major stories.
And Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Human Rights Watch talking about the war going on in Ambazonia again. In Alama to Mankon, celebrating the return of electricity after more than 4 months of blackout. We brought to you uncertainty of lives in Ambazonia as unidentified corpse was found in an advanced stage of decomposition in the southern Cameroons.
Well, tonight on Undaunted, we brought to you the deeds of Jean-Baptiste Bokam. And on the African scene, we told you that in Morocco, emergency plan to counter the water surfaces began. While on the foreign scene, Israel's withdrawal of some troops from Gaza sparks new government rift. While Gab Ellison was on the sports news. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted. Bringing to the news and church stories. On behalf of Sir Smart and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night and God bless you.